Hello everyone, I'm Murphy. I love to read books and I love to talk about books. And this is my YouTube channel, Murphy's Every Whim. Today, it's late in the afternoon. I'm trying to see how this setting will work. The house is pretty quiet except that the wind is howling outside. So I hope that doesn't end up being too loud on the video. Today I want to talk about a book haul, and let's get started. I went to the book exchange in Foley, Alabama, which is a very nice used bookstore. I was pleased to see the wide selection and how well it was organized, and just the sort of bookstore I hadn't seen in a long time. And then I also stopped at the Gulf Shores, Alabama Public Library because they have a bookshelf, actually several shelves with books for sale. And I picked up a couple there. So that's where I got the books. A goal for myself, I tried to say that I wouldn't get a lot of books of the same genre, that I try to spread it out and maybe find some books that were a little outside of my comfort zone. All right, so what did we get? Yes, I use the royal we a lot. Sandra Brown's Blind Tiger. And I had read only one Sandra Brown book. It was Mean Streak. And I liked it, and I passed it off to my partner, he who caters for my every whim, and he liked it too. But I haven't read anything since, and I didn't want to get a romance novel, so I got a thriller by someone who writes romance novels. That's as close to romance as I got. If anyone has any good recommendations for romance novels that someone who doesn't read romance would read, that'd be nice. And by the way, I'm going through these in order of publication, for the most part, newest to oldest. The next one is His Bloody Project by Graem, Macrae, Burnet, and I don't have the book with me because I already read it and returned it. I traded it in for other books at the book exchange. And this book, according to The Guardian, it says it's a psychological thriller masquerading as a slice of true crime. I'm not exactly sure where The Guardian got that idea. It's not true crime because it's a novel, and I didn't find it a psychological thriller. You know, at the very beginning of the book, that this 17-year-old boy killed a family. And the book is then telling, what led up to that. There's also information about the trial, some pseudo-psychology that you might expect from 19th century Great Britain. It's set in a small village in Scotland in 1869. And it was a good read. I read it in one day. Every time I got up to do something, I wanted to sit back down and read it. But it's I just didn't think of it as a psychological thriller. The next book is, it's heavy. The Norton Anthology of World Literature, Volume 1. I like to get anthologies. I like possibly reading the anthology front to back, and I just finished about a month or two ago the Norton Anthology of Literature by Women, and I read that 1,500 pages front to back. It took me more than a decade to do, but I did it. And probably won't do that with this one, but I got this one because it has things in it like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Canterbury Tales, some of Don Quixote. And so even though those might just be excerpts in here, reading the excerpts would give me an idea whether I want to go full bore and get a complete copy of those works to read. But I like getting anthologies. I have quite a few of them. Fortunately, I work at a college, and sometimes I can get them for free from my literary friends. Spooner by Pete Dexter. So I read Paris Trout. I've read Paris Trout by Pete Dexter many times. I've also read, sorry, I have to cheat and look at the information. The Paperboy by Pete Dexter. Both are dark and gritty, and I like that sort of thing. I would consider them both Southern Gothic. Whether that's technically true or not, I don't know. I like them. And I was interested in this Pete Dexter book. It's a newer book. I really don't think it's the same sort of thing, but that's fine. I still want to read more Pete Dexter. The next book I know nothing about. It's Hands of Flame by C.E. Murphy. And I got it because it has Murphy in the author's title, and it's a fantasy. It's the third book of the Negotiator trilogy of the Old Races series, and the Old Races universe. And I wanted to get some kind of fantasy. The name caught my eye, and the spine was what I could see on the bookshelf. That caught my eye. Next is a nonfiction book. I'm a sewist, and I'm always on the lookout for something that'll help me refashion, upcycle clothing, because I've told myself I can't buy any new clothing till ever. I'm not doing that well at that. I have bought a few new things, but most of the things I've gotten in say the past 5 years have been from thrift stores or just upcycling my own work. And so I'm always looking for ideas. And there's a good question about whether, if you've been sewing for 50 years, as I have, a book like this is of any use to you. And so how do I decide? First of all, it was used, and the Book Exchange has good prices on books. And I looked through it, and I saw 3 ideas that I thought were interesting. I'll read the whole thing. I'll copy down in writing the juicy bits into my sewing journal, and then I'll pass this on to whoever wants it next. So I think the price was well worth it. On a more serious note, The Bridge at Noganry. This is a book telling the story that was by some, sorry, I'm stumbling over this, some news writers investigated the story and published it, and got the Pulitzer Prize. The Bridge at Noganry is a story of a massacre of Korean civilians in Korea during the Korean War. In fact, the first few weeks of the Korean War. We're not sure how many people were massacred, but somewhere the range is from like 180 to 300. And it was brutal, it was bloody, it was completely unnecessary. And this book is about the 50-year story of the survivors and their compatriots trying to get acknowledgement by both governments, Korea and U.S., that this happened, and trying to get vainly the U.S. to apologize and provide compensation. It's a good read. If you can say that a brutal description of a massacre of people, and some of them are the survivors, and they're telling their stories of what happened during the massacre. If you can think of that brutal description as a good read, then it is. I appreciate greatly the amount of time spent in the book on the survivors and the victims and their lives. I'm about halfway through, and I'll probably write about this or post something on a video sometime soon. All right. Maybe a little bit completely different. Again, these are in order by publication date. Holes by Louis Sachar. I apologize for any pronunciation, or if I even forget to say who the authors are. Holes, I didn't know this was a book. I knew that there was a movie about it. In fact, I spent 2 hours at this movie, 2 hours I will never get back in when it first came out. My brother-in-law wanted all of us to go, and so we did, and not so good. But it is a Newbery Award winner, Newbery Medal, and I don't know, why get it? Maybe the book is good, even though the movie wasn't. Hope Springs Eternal. John Mortimer. I read Paradise Postponed by John Mortimer. That was the first book by him I read. And then I read a lot of the Rumpole series. I saw this and was interested in getting it because it wasn't Rumpole. Even though, Rumpole's wife, She Who Must Be Obeyed, her name is what drove me to name my partner He Who Caters for my every whim. And I thought the Rumpole books were good. I don't think I need to read more of him, but I am interested in reading more of John Mortimer. So this book and Spooner by Pete Dexter, I think these must have been requested by their publishers. These were done later in their careers, and I think they must have been requested by their publishers to bank on their previous success. We'll see how those books go. The Wastelands by Stephen King. This is book 3 of the Dark Tower, and I haven't finished book 1 yet, but I got this just so I'd have it when it came time. Another book that I got because of the name, Haughton Murphy, and it's Murder Saves Face. But there's anyway, that's why I got it. It's number 6 in the Reuben and Cynthia Frost series. So the fact that the detectives, or the people who are solving the mystery, are named Frost and the author is named Murphy, I had to get it. Again, I know nothing about it. James Blish, A Life for the Stars. This is a Cities in Flight novel. In fact, it's the third of the Cities in Flight novels, and it sounded a little kind of bizarre, but I'm interested in that. It's definitely pulpy. James Blish was one of the writers who wrote books to accompany the first Star Trek TV series. He was a science fiction writer, fairly prolific. I'm just curious to see what this pulpy little novel will be like. And speaking of pulp, we have in its plastic cover Gun Law at Vermillion by Matt Stuart. This book comes from 1952. And so it's about the time, one of the reasons I got it is about the time that my parents were married and having their first children. But also it's gun law at Vermillion, and I've been to Vermillion, South Dakota. So as you can see, I like to pick up books that have some vague connection to me and myself. I missed a book, and I want to talk about it. I don't have it with me because I've returned it already. It's The Incredible Journey by Sheila Burnford. And this is, I don't think I ever read this book when I was young. It's possible, but I know it was everywhere, and the story was everywhere, and the story's pretty clear. It's three animals who travel 250 miles on their own. And do they survive or not? We don't know. I'm not telling. Anyway, it's possible that this is a book that Sister Celestine Marie read to us in school. She liked to read that sort of book. She read Call of the Wild to us, and so maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I read this in an afternoon. It was a nice little read. I enjoyed it a lot, and I thought the reading level was high enough that I didn't feel like I was reading juvenile fiction or young adult fiction. I have a problem when writing for that audience means you dumb down what you're writing, and I think that's wrong. And so I thought it was very enjoyable as a woman of some age. I still thought the writing was good. All right. Next is John O'Hara's Butterfield 8. So I got this because I've seen the movie, and Elizabeth, sorry, that's terrible that I can't think of her last name, Elizabeth Taylor in that movie. I've actually used stills from that movie in the creation of some collage art. And so I like that image. I wanted to read the book as well. It was written and it was published in 1935. Another reason I got it is because the name of the title is Butterfield 8, which is a phone exchange. And I'm old enough to know when we had phone exchanges like that. In fact, my first phone exchange was Wabash 3, and I thought that it was cool that Wabash, which was WA3, was also our name's Wagoner, and so it had the first two letters of our last name as our phone exchange. That was great. And but anyway, I'm maybe a quarter of the way through this, and this is really good. And I'm finding the descriptions of Depression-era New York, they sound much more modern than I expected them to. It's really good, and it's not just about the main female character. There are a lot of other people involved. This book, a lot could be discussed about this book in terms of the relationships of people, their hardships, etc. I'm excited about reading this. All right, I have 4 books left, but they're part of a series, and Criminology inspired me to try to read the 87th Precinct series, and I've read about 20 of them, I think. And so while I was at the bookstore, I picked up 4 of them, Heat, Tricks, Vespers, and Big Bad City, which are numbers 35, 40, 42, and 49, respectively. And yes, there are, is it 50-something books in the series. I'm really enjoying these. It's one of those things that I can't believe I didn't know these existed before. And I'm eager to get past whatever number I am at now to get to these paper ones. I've been reading them electronically and listening, a variety of reading. So that's the book haul from the Book Exchange and Gulf Shores Public Library. I enjoyed my day of shopping there, so I went back again and got a few more books. And anyway, so that's what I have.
Still on it.
Thanks, and I will see you at the next video. Please take care of yourselves.
Something went wrong.
Bye.